All right. AI with Alec, we're back for another fireside chat with my man Will from Wendy's Crushing AI. I'm going to let you do a little intro, Will, so I don't
Yeah.
butcher it for you. But Will Croushorn coming
Yep.
at
You
you
got it.
live from AI with Wendy's. Go.
Yeah. Name of Croushorn. I help oversee AI in the drive-through in the QSR space. We're doing some really cool things. One of the first AI drive-through platforms. We're handling thousands of orders every day, it's so much fun being able to just pioneer this space of something that's never been done before in fast food industry. Alec, I do have to add, I speak for myself, not the brand or the company.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now you can
Got
really,
to get those little plugs in there.
now you can say whatever you want. What I said, all due respect.
Exactly.
Excellent. All right, so let's kick things off. We had a very exciting and interesting pre-call ahead of this, and I said to you, I was like, man, there's so much in here that I wish we would have recorded that. So let's just let it rip. So when you think about artificial intelligence, which means a lot of things, a lot of people, but when you think about AI in relation to customer experience and what's now possible, can you help the audience understand how you think about that and the way that you all are approaching it, just broad strokes?
Yeah, so I think like at a core level, like from a product perspective, like some things are still the same, right? Like we want the customers to have a really great experience. I spend hours listening to the drive-through, getting that feedback. Actually, like one of the crazy things we've done is like go to Disney World and just sit in a line and just like watch what is that experience. Like really adding value, like that doesn't change. I think what changes with the tools that we have now is you can get hyper personalized. I can move at light speed. If I have a question about like, man, what if we tried this? Like my team can iterate and move in ways that we never could. And then we're able to bring just a consistency and a scale, or a consistency and personalization at scale that just would never have been possible before, AI.
Yeah, spot on. And one of the things that we talked about, which you just created a perfect bridge into it, is this relationship between data and products, and right. So data science, data engineering, the cleanliness of data, the accessibility of the data, and therefore the ideas. And can you talk to us a bit about that? Because that idea of all of the data associated with the drive-through and
Yeah.
how you all process it and think about it, and then how you innovate accordingly with LM enabled stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, so I mean, it's crazy. You don't think of something like a fast food setting as being that complex, but like for our main sandwich, there's over 200 billion ways to make that. And then you add complexities of like the way that people speak or the language that they're using or, background. I mean, there's like so many things. But I think one of the things that I've really driven my team and as we've worked together and explored is like every point is a data point. What is shown on screen, what a customer says, I mean, down to like the very syllable. Really understanding like all of this information helps us create a better experience for the consumer. I think like one of the really cool things is like just the questions that we're able to ask. Like literally, it's every day I'm like driving to work. I'm like, oh man, we've never thought of it from that angle before. And so having that data set, having that really robust pipeline is absolutely critical for us to build a platform that's scalable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the amount of knowledge that we as humans now can process, right, and interpret, in conjunction with LM enabled systems is obviously beyond fascinating. And I know that both of us, feel that way. I guess a question I'd ask is if I were to be in the audience, the followers kind of chair, one of the things I would wonder is, do people always know that they're interfacing to an extent with an AI enabled system? Like, how does that relationship and interface work? Because I imagine you have people with all sorts of different levels of, quote unquote, digital sophistication that interface. Like,
Yeah.
walk us through some thoughts and some observations on the way different people interface with intelligent systems.
Yeah, so I think it's not too dissimilar from like talking to ChatGPT or Gemini. There's this like an innate way that people know I'm interacting with a computer. But what's crazy is we've seen customers love it. There's just this preference, especially with younger people going through the drive-through. Like, I'm used to this. I'm on my phone all the time, or hey, I'm busy. I'm going to work. I just need to go. And I think the thing that like I've learned in building products in this space is like there is a role that AI and computers can do that humans can't. I mean, there's efficiency, there's optimization, there's creating these really cool experiences, there's the language aspect of it. We can't do that with a human, but there's also this human element. Like, we're entering into a world where I think like really niche skill sets where people are coming like, oh, I'm this culinary chef, or even things like, hey, that warm smart. Like, there's things that we can't replicate and we don't want to replicate. And so it's finding that balance of like, what is it that makes the best experience for the customer? What does this AI platform do well? And what is it something that only a human touch can bring? And you put that together. And I think that's where the real magic is.
I completely agree. And I think to double click on that a little bit, tell us a bit about, and without, of course, no proprietary stuff here.
Yeah.
I totally understand, that dimension. But I think one of the things I would be quite interested in is how much can you share about your innovation process, right? You mentioned whether it be Disneyland, Disney World, maybe some other brands that inspire you all. Like, walk us through a little bit, as much as you can, when you think about product innovation that's AI enabled, how do cross-functional teams come together, and just what does that look like in general?
Yeah, so my team, we use the term like what if. We spend a lot of time just asking questions. I think one of the things, like if you're going to be successful in this space, you just have to be like insanely curious, like almost to a fault. Because the reality is we're all figuring this out together. I mean, 2 years ago, a lot of these platforms, a lot of these capabilities don't even exist. I mean, to give you an example, yesterday, so one of the things that I'll do is I'll drive to work and I'll turn on ChatGPT's like talk mode, and I'll just ask a question, like teach me something new. And like yesterday, I'm thinking through, like, what, like in 10 years, when quantum computing is a reality, like how does that change the drive-through when you can literally sort through every order, every ever placed, and give you the right option of like what to suggest, And so having that deep hunger, that curiosity, again, it's supported by that data set, and then finding like-minded people that are bringing different perspectives, and just having that culture of asking those what if questions, like, oh man, we've never tried this, but like, maybe let's go to Disney World. Let's log in and see how Netflix, like when you log into Netflix, like what is that user experience like looking outside of just what's immediately around you for inspiration.
Perfect. And let's go to the question that I guarantee that some folks would have, which is, that framing it that way makes all the sense in the world, right? Because literally, let's say 2.5 years ago, for sure, these AI enabled tools, infrastructure, et cetera, just they really weren't available. And so help us understand how I hate to sound like a management consultant, right? But how do you operationalize that curiosity amongst like-minded people that are already inherently that way, and then maybe some others that are like, well, I appreciate it, but I'm not sure that actually is worth the calculated risk that innovation requires, or I'm not really sure if I understand, frankly, what you're talking about, right? I mean, we've all been there in large companies, so would love to hear just a little bit of walk us through some of the obstacles you've overcome, and or those that are just inherent, and some techniques, because I think a lot of people are excited about that dimension of how do we achieve what Wendy's is achieving in this area, because clearly you all are crushing it. But I think the audience would love to hear that.
Yeah, so from the gate, I'd say you need both people. Like, you need those people that are the visionaries that are saying like, oh man, what if we could do this? And then you have to have that team around you that's sort of grounding you, saying like, wait a minute, like, yeah, we might be able to get there, or maybe not, but like, here's the process to do that, And so I'm really fortunate to have a team like that around me. For us, it really is making sure that we're working ahead. We're already thinking through like what's happening next year, what's happening again. Like, I'm just talking about like the next 5 or 10 years, and so thinking longer term, and understanding like those short term impacts. But it really comes down to being a storyteller, really. Having that ability. I create so many just Google slide decks. I mean, what's incredible is like with the tools that we have available to us now, like, the average person, you can put together a slide deck, a markup, in a matter of minutes, that's really professional. And so learning that, what is the core business value? Like, what are your objectives? What are those people above you? Like, what are they trying to achieve? Really understanding your customer, but then understanding like, how do I tell this story? And again, that's where like partnering with like the finance team and the data team and having the people that are like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. I understand the business. I have this story that I'm wanting to tell. Can you help me ground this with like this business value? And again, it's this collaborative team effort, but it really comes down to asking the right questions and then being a really good storyteller to help everybody get on board.
It's a fantastic answer. And this will be the last question, just because I know this is like, it always is so hard to compress these things with these ridiculous time limits that I put on. Yep. I have no idea why I do that, but here we go. So last question. I think everyone wants to know, right, how a large company can move like you all have from these killer pilots and POCs, right? There's an idea out there, and whether it's true or not, that, pilot POC in the AI space is not the most difficult thing to stand up. Now, what's difficult is to migrate from a pilot and POC into production and at scale. You guys obviously have figured that out. I wonder, are there any tips, tricks, or just anything you could share with the audience around what you think enables a higher probability of pilots and POCs to be able to cross that chasm to production and scale? Because I know folks would love to hear it.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things come to mind. Number one, like we're really fortunate. I mean, if you can imagine, like when we started, I mean, even a year ago, we were a really small team. We were essentially a small startup, even in this really big organization. And I think that ability to be agile was really crucial for us to have that like what if mentality of asking questions and moving really fast. I'm not gonna lie, it was really hard. But I think that's what allowed us to be nimble and move as quickly as we have. The other key thing that I think has really set us up for success is I spend so much time just sitting and listening to customers. Like it's one thing to sit in an office, but it's another thing to actually get out in the field and understand like what are the real problems. Because I think that's where we sort of can get off track, is if we're building a thing that no one wants, then there's no value to it. But if you're able to actually meet those needs, and I think that's one of the things that our team has been able to deliver, is there's real value here. And when there's value, the business is going to come behind you because it only makes sense to push that thing forward.
That's a fantastic answer. And we'll wrap on that. I really appreciate that, because I do think that sometimes we spend too much time in front of our computers and machines as opposed to, go into a restaurant and talk to folks. And that's where the true unlock can come from. So, Will, I really appreciate the time. I know that everybody that, tends to watch these types of things, AI with Alec stuff, they love hearing from folks doing great work. Any last kind of comments on how people can find you, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, what have you, before we wrap up?
Yeah, well, please add me, Will Croushorn, LinkedIn. Would absolutely love to connect. And anytime that somebody wants to talk product, I'm all ears. So
awesome. Thanks, Will. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Alec.
We'll see you next time.
You too.